All right, hello people from the internet. Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is Nine Settler here with another non-gameplay video. Today I am going to be talking about the usage of consumables and their usages. So the video is going to be structured similarly to a spell overview, but I'm going to be talking about consumables. So before I get into the topic, just two things. First of all is the Patreon. Um, I have had it for a while, but I like to continue reminding you. It really has a very significant positive impact in me and my life. It has already gotten me out of some pickles, so I do appreciate the contributions of everyone who chooses to support me via Patreon. That definitely helps a lot. Also, thank you all for your contributions in general as a whole, like whether it is comments or Twitch subscriptions or bits or just straight up donations. I appreciate all of that a lot, and it really does help me continue doing this. Mm, but that's the first thing. The second thing is that I recommend you to speed up the video, as I always do in all of my videos. You should consider speeding it up. Mm, but you can also enjoy it at the current speed if you so desire. But with that out of the way, let's get into the topic of the video, consumables. So I am going to talk about scrolls and potions here. Those are the two that I'm going to be talking about today. I hope that the video doesn't take me too long. If it does, it might be a two-parter. I shall see when I am done with one of the two categories how long the video has been going for and make a decision then. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, as you all know, I do these almost entirely unscripted. Um, so I'm gonna search for potion, and it's gonna give me all of the potions that exist in the game and row of binds. If you wanna know why this appears here, it's because it doubles the healing that you get from potions. That's why it appears when you search for potions. Anyway, first on the list apparently is Ambrosia. So let's talk about this. It's a strange substance produced by ghost moths. Consuming it causes regeneration of health and magic along with total befuddlement. The two effects are fundamentally linked. The regeneration ends the moment the confusion does. It is a rare potion. Ambrosia is a very interesting consumable. It is definitely not the most common of consumables. If you want to see the effects of Ambrosia in the early game, you can start a Monk, since Monk always starts with a potion of Ambrosia in 0.28, I think it was. I don't know if it was 0.28 or 0.29. Oh, it was probably 0.29 because the change came after attacks of opportunity, and that's a 0.29 change. Anyway, Ambrosia, as it says, gives you HP regen, mana regen, and confusion. All three things are together, linked, intertwined together. You stop being confused, you stop regenerating health and mana. So that means that you cannot drink Ambrosia and drink a bunch of potions of curing in a situation of dire danger later in the game. You can do the same with Potion of Heal Wounds. So like you drink Ambrosia and then you use the turns while you're affected by the confusion from the Ambrosia to drink 3 or 4 potions of heal wounds, and it's gonna end with you being significantly healthier than you were before drinking the potion of ambrosia. That is probably one of the best usages for this consumable later in the game. Like you read a teleport, you get out of the danger situation, and then you drink the ambrosia. And then you chase it with a couple of heal wounds. And yeah, that's a good way to, avoid death or at least postpone it as long as possible. Sometimes it is like that in Crawl. But anyway, that's Ambrosia. That's one use for Ambrosia. In the early game, considering how Monk starts with it nowadays, you can probably drink it, and you can just wait out the effects. It is very uncommon for you to see something that can actually outdamage the effects of Ambrosia in the first couple of floors. Probably don't try that on a snake, since the snake can seriously poison you. Similarly, don't try it with anything that can poison you at all. So no scorpions, no monsters wielding venom weapons. Those are kind of prevalent in the early game. Maybe don't try it against orc priests, unless it's like literally your last ditch effort to avert death, because those guys can just double smite you or so and just like destroy you. But for most other monsters, kobolds, quokkas, things that you cannot quite run away from, this is incredible in the early game. If you happen to find one of those and you're like at 1 HP. So yeah, you can also use it for mana regeneration purposes, but I would also go out of my way to make it as safe as possible for me to use it like that, because of course the confusion. It is a very feels bad moment when you are drinking ambrosia for anything, for any purpose whatsoever, and then immediately the turn after you drink it, you see a reason for you to not be confused, whether it is a dangerous monster or something else. It is almost always going to be a dangerous monster just walking around the corner or so. So yeah, do try to be as safe as possible whenever you're using a potion of ambrosia, because otherwise you might have to waste it. I think that's all I have to say about that one. Let's go to potion of attraction. A potion which makes the drinker attract enemies, translocating them quickly closer for the duration of the effect. This effect is surprisingly subtle, and unwary victims may slip through it entirely. It is an uncommon potion. This is a really, really strong consumable. It is dangerous to use, as you can see, by its tag of dangerous item. Because of course pulling monsters towards you may end in unfortunate results, of course. But if used properly, this is a really strong effect. You can use it for stabbing purposes, just like the ring attraction, and stay still until the things that you want to stab like are next to you, and then you just poke them with your dagger and they explode. Or you can use it for the purposes of pulling monsters into clouds of flame that you have already on the screen. A good combination that I like to do nowadays is a Scroll of Poison plus Potion of Attraction. That will almost always kill everything that you use it against in most stages of the game. It also is really, really good if you have poison resistance yourself, because you can just retreat into the clouds of poison and then use the potion of attraction, or just do it and then run into the poison, and then the monsters will be even further poisoned. Or you might remove the safe squares for monsters to be in where other monsters were, because Scroll of Poison doesn't place clouds where other monsters are, or when monsters are. Whenever you use it, it places a cloud of poison on every tile that is not a tile currently occupied by a monster. So I consider it to be a pretty strong consumable potion of attraction. And of course, one of its most important uses is later in the game, in fact in the end game, where you are fighting a curse. Though you drink a potion of 3 and a potion of attraction to make yourself immune to torment from the potion of 3, which usually comes with the very dangerous downside by that point in the game of leaving you completely unable to move. But potion of attraction makes it so that things are next to you. So not only does that kill Curstos very, very easily, as long as you can actually harm them. Of course, it just prevents you from not dying to them. But it also reduces the risk of being a tree, because whatever draconian that walks around the corner after you're done with the curse, though, is going to be pulled straight towards you. So I consider this consumable to be really good, even for spellcasters, because of the Potion of 3 application that I just mentioned. It is just something that you probably shouldn't use unless you're sure that it is the effect you want. I have used it in the past, and it has killed me in the past. It is not the easiest thing to use, and sometimes you can be greatly punished by using it, but when you use it properly, it is a really, really good consumable. One more application out the door. Attraction is great against monsters that have very strong ranged attacks, such as centaurs, centaur warriors, and yoctors. It doesn't work that well against monsters that have very strong ranged, that still use their very strong ranged in melee range, such as, for example, Deep Elf Master Archers. It works really well against Nessos too. In case you have issues killing Nessos, you probably should hex Nessos anyway. But yeah, do keep it in mind for the Potion of Attraction. It has some fantastic uses. Next on our list we have Potion of Cirque, a potion which can turn one into an incoherent rage. Okay, it is a rare potion, and it does exactly what it says on the label. With Berserk Rage, you probably all have played Throg at least once, so you know what Throg does with the Berserk abilities. Same stuff. It literally makes you Berserk and not much else, with the upsides and downsides of Berserking. Personally, I would consider it to be a dangerous potion. I would consider this to be a dangerous potion, but it is not marked as dangerous by the game, because being Berserk can have very severe downsides. It removes the ability for you to use any other consumables or potions or cast spells. All the things that you can do are move, switch your weapon, and attack, and that's pretty much it. And yeah, like most characters have that as a downside, because most characters can do more things and move, attack, and switch weapons, right? Like they have god abilities, they have consumables, they have spells, they have throwables, that kind of thing. So yeah, I consider Potion of Berserk Rage to be a very, very dangerous consumable. Generally, I don't use this. It is going to be a very strange occasion where I personally think that using Potion of Cirque is the optimal thing to do. Sometimes, let's say that I am an unarmed combat character, relatively early into the game, and I have a Potion of Cirque, but I'm fighting something pretty messed up, such as, I don't know, let's say a secluded skeletal warrior, and that I am before Lure, but like I cannot disengage from it for one reason or another, but I'm rather healthy as well. Non trivial way to get rid of it is definitely to use a potion of 3 and chase it with a potion of Berserk Rage, because that's gonna increase your HP quite heavily, and it's also gonna increase the damage that you deal with your melee, as long as you're not wielding anything. And in addition, you also have a lot of attack speed from the Cirque. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter whether or not you're wielding something, but for an unarmed combat character, it is better to not wield anything when you're using Potion of 3. But anyway, this is about Potion of Berserk Rage and not Potion of 3. It is just a little combination that I do sometimes. On characters that don't particularly care too much about either Potion of 3 or Potion of Berserk Rage, it is a perfect way to get rid of some early game nasty enemies while using consumables that are not that important to the character in question. But yeah, I don't really use this that much. Next on our list, we have Potion of Brilliance, which is a potion which increases the power of the drinker's spells and halves their mana cost, rounding up. It is an uncommon potion. This is a really, really strong consumable. Before, I think, well, I don't remember when it was, but it was reworked a couple of years ago, and it was made so that instead of helping you cast the spells, it made it so that your spells were more powerful and half their mana cost, as you can see. The halving their mana cost part is so powerful. It is probably one of the strongest effects that you can apply to yourself, and of course, you can only get it from Potion of Brilliance and from the Robe of Folly. That's why I consider the Robe of Folly to be an enabler for probably the most powerful build that you can achieve in Crawl, which is just a character that goes through the dungeon with Firestorm Quiver and just Firestorms everything. Kind of like a Djinn, but without being a Djinn. So yeah, and that is because of the brilliance property in the Robo Folly. So obviously having it as a consumable that you have access to in a controlled way, in a safe way, without having to use a Robo Folly, without having to nuke your willpower, as the Robo Folly demands you to do, it is quite good. Quite a powerful consumable, great for when you know that you're going to be getting into an extended fight, say SOT 5, Bolts 5. Potion of Brilliance is great for almost guaranteed that you're not going to be running out of mana. It also increases your spell power a bit. It's like one enhancer for every spell, so it is not terrible either, but or for that purpose. But I would really not use it for that purpose personally. I would prefer to mm, hmm. Sorry, I got distracted a bit. I would prefer to use it for the purpose of not running out of mana in a dangerous fight. For spell enhancement, you have other non-consumable resources, such as using rings of fire, rings of ice, or enhancer stapes. So yeah, that's Potion of Brilliance. I consider it to be really, really good. Next on our list, we have Potion of Cancellation, a potion which ends most magical effects, good or bad, affecting one who drinks it. It also reduces magical contamination. Drinking this now will have no effect. This is an important thing to mention. If you are unsure on whether or not cancellation will get rid of whatever ails you at the moment, you can go to your inventory and inspect a potion of cancellation, and the game will tell you if the potion of cancellation will get rid of whatever you have. Just like as a small like surface note on this, um, cancellation doesn't get rid of godly effects, such as, for example, buffs, almost always buffs that come from your god. Cancellation will get rid of things like confusion, petrification, will get rid of things like corrosion, I'm pretty sure, will get rid of flay. Cancellation heals a lot of very exotic things that curing doesn't. So you could consider cancellation to be like advanced curing in that regard. Obviously, it doesn't heal, but the curing element of curing is pretty worthless anyway, so it's not even worth considering. Um, Cancellation heals sickness as well. Yeah, there's a lot of things that cancellation heals. Curing used to heal sickness, but that was nerfed a couple of versions ago as well. So yeah, obviously, like you don't really want to use this every time when you're affected by those things. You have to make a decision on whether it is more valuable to preserve this resource for later on, or if you have to use it now because it is a rather rare resource, as you can see right here. A potion of cancellation can also get rid of mark, very important to keep in mind in bolts. Sometimes using a potion of cancellation is the difference between living and dying. You can see that happen most often whenever you are about to be petrified. Petrification is really the perfect debuff to talk about when you're discussing cancellation, because you have to make a decision. Do I let myself be petrified, or do I use cancellation, which is really expensive, to avoid potential death? At the cost of not being able to use cancellation later on, and, assuming that is the only one that you have. And at the points in the games which petrification are an issue, it is most likely going to be the only potion of cancellation that you're going to have in your inventory. So yeah, very interesting consumable, very good as well, very strong, and it has applications for the entirety of the game. But it is rare, so you really cannot use it lightly. Next on our list we have Curing. A potion which restores a small amount of health and cures poison and confusion. It is a very common potion. It is indeed a very common potion. I've had characters and the game with like 30 potions of curing or so, and that is not even thinking about characters that go into cigarettes or extended. Those ones often end with a lot more potions of curing in their inventory. We've already talked in in a lot of detail about these when discussing the previous potions, specifically Ambrosia and Cancellation. So you know exactly what it does. It just removes poison and confusion. I think that the complexity of this item is very, very low because it is also a very, very common item that early game players are more likely to see. So you introduce the concept of consumables to early game players by introducing a low complexity consumable that is very easy to figure out when you have to use. So I don't think I have to talk a lot about this one. Next on our list we have Djinn. Djinn is not a consumable. Djinn is a reason not to drink potions blindly. A noxious concoction which reduces strength, intelligence, and dexterity. It is an uncommon potion. The stat reduction is temporary with that, but it is obviously not a consumable. In fact, it is there to prevent you from drinking potions blindly, as I already mentioned. It is the slight potential punishment for doing that. It always feels bad when you are in a 1 HP situation and you're like drinking potions blindly, hoping to not die horribly, and then you get a potion of Djinn and then you die. Or even if you live, the stat malus might be awful for the early game. But anyway, next on our list we have Potion of Experience, a truly wonderful and very rare drink which grants experience when consumed. It is a very rare potion. Who would have guessed that it is a very rare potion? Anyway, for Potion of Experience, you may think that it is very straightforward and just drink it as soon as you get one, but it is a bit more complicated than that. Depending on your species, you may want to wait to the next level up. Let's say that I am a Djinn and I just got to experience level 15, and other than 1 or 2 spells that I've gotten, everything else has been absolute trash. And I am getting carried by 1 or 2 spells. If I was on such a character, I would wait until I was experience level 16 and then drink this to just get my next spell. Yeah, like as soon as I level up to 16, I would level up to 17 thanks to this wonderful potion of experience on that hypothetical Djinn character, and then I would be able to get my next spell. So that's like one example. You may also want to delay using this if you're very close to leveling up already. Let's say that you are at experience level 10 with like 90% all the way to level 11. As long as you remember to drink it as soon as you level up to 11, you might want to do exactly that because you're going to get a lot of value out of the potion of experience. Like, you get more experience because it takes more and more and more experience to level up to the next level. That's just how Crawl works. So the more you delay drinking it, the more experience you're gonna get from the potion. It's just the nature of it. But of course, you have to get the fine balance between drinking it immediately and potentially wasting some experience, or drinking, or like maybe dying because you didn't drink your potion of experience. So that's why people usually just drink them right away. And you can also do that, and it's probably not gonna be a huge factor that impacts your win rate or anything, considering how especially rare these things are. But if you want to get the most out of your potion of experience, that's probably the best way to do it. So yeah, anyway, next on our list we have Potion of Flight, a potion which confers great buoyancy on one who consumes it. It is an uncommon potion. This potion has some utility. It is a rather trash potion, very rarely truly useful and impactful, but it does have some utility to be able to fly. You can avoid lava, you can avoid deep water in situations where you know that you may want to maneuver through those to run away from enemies or run towards enemies. It is important to keep that in mind. So Potion of Flight can be useful when used preemptively. If you don't use it preemptively, it's gonna be one turn where you're not gonna do anything. So you have to decide if you are okay with just having one turn where you don't do anything. It is not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes that may kill you or force you to use a scroll of blinking. So yeah, thinking ahead of time usually saves you consumables quite well. And in this case, using Potion of Flight early might be better than using Potion of Flight late. Same goes for Haste and same goes for Might. But Flight is probably the least impactful out of those three. It also goes for Brilliance. Brilliance can prevent the usage of potions of mana because it halves the mana cost of your spells, so you just get double the spells for the amount of mana. But anyway, going back to Potion of Flight, it's also good in Swamp for not fumbling attacks, for being able to run away, because Shallow Water slows you and it makes you fumble attacks. So if you go through Shallow Water, you're like guaranteed to not be able to run away from anything. Even if you're flying, it might still be difficult to run away from things in swamp, since alligators and hydras, for example, are swift swimmers. There's some other monsters that are also swift swimmers as well that I may be forgetting about. So yeah, but Potion of Flight at least lets you not fumble attacks, which can definitely kill some characters, unless you are fortunate enough to be able to ignore fumbling attacks, such as Trolls and Ogres. They're large enough that they will never fumble attacks. For those characters, Potion of Flight has less utility, but still holds some utility, of course. It is nice to have permanent flight, but flight as a consumable is kind of clunky and low impact. But anyway, next on our list we have Potion of Haste, an enchanted beverage which speeds the actions of anyone who drinks it. It is an uncommon potion, and it is also one of the strongest consumables that exists in the game. Potion of Haste is close to the pinnacle of offense and defense when it comes to consumables. It may not be the best defensive consumable. I would think that Potion Scroll Blinking is that. And it may also not be the best offensive consumable. I think maybe Brilliance would be that, since it just allows you to burn a lot more mana than you have access to. But it definitely does a pretty fantastic job of keeping you alive and making you deal much more damage, since you are hasted, so you attack faster and you run away faster. And in general, you just get more actions compared to enemy actions. As a whole, getting hasted is a really, really sweet effect. There's a reason why haste is no longer a spell that exists in the game, and is mostly, almost entirely limited to, non-renewable sources of it, because it is that powerful. And having unlimited haste would break the game in the way that, like, you have no reason not to be hasted if you have unlimited haste in any given situation. That's why haste the spell was removed, but Potion of Haste is still in the game. So yeah, great for fighting, great for running away, great for avoiding death as a whole. If you're going to get into a nasty fight, you might also want to haste. So you have extra actions and extra damage and extra, chances of not dying. It is a really, really good consumable. I would also recommend you not to use this lightly, because despite the fact that it says it is uncommon, there's definitely some games where I encounter myself being in Sutton having like one Potion of Haste throughout the entirety of the game, like having only found one. So yeah. Next on our list, we have Heal Wounds, a magical healing elixir which causes wounds to close and heal almost instantly. It is a common potion. Well, unfortunately, Heal Wounds is also not that magical, healing you between 15 and 40 HP or so. On a pretty fantastic roll, you can get healed quite heavily from Heal Wounds, but almost always it is going to be quite a disappointing potion usage. More often than not being able to even compensate for the damage that monsters are inflicting on your character. This potion is pretty good to drink when you're waiting for the teleport, because you may think to yourself, oh, I might get killed by a monster. Let me just drink a couple of heal wounds to try to avert that as much as possible. It is also good for drinking after teleporting in a situation where you were able to run away with very little HP. I already talked about that particular use case when I was talking about Ambrosia. Um, and it is, of course, incredible in the early game. Once again, I already mentioned that with Ambrosia, I think. Um, so heal wounds is massive to have in the early game because since we know that it's gonna heal you something along the lines of between 20 and 40, I might be getting the numbers a bit rough, and it may be a bit less than 20 for the minimum and a bit less than 40 for the maximum, but whatever. It is usually between that range. You know that it's gonna be much more impactful when you have 50 max HP and the monsters are hitting you for like 5 or so than when you have 200 max HP and the monsters are hitting you for like 50 or so. So yeah, it is by all means an early game consumable, leaving aside the possibility of just stacking the usage of heal wounds. That means repeatedly using heal wounds every turn. To not die in a desperate situation. So yeah. Next on our list we have Invisibility, a potion which confers invisibility on one who consumes it. Who would have guessed? It is a rare potion. It is also not a potion that I personally use a lot. It does have some infamously good uses. For example, against the Minotaur in a gauntlet, Minotaurs do not see invisible, so a potion of invisibility can be good for either walking past the Minotaur or stabbing the Minotaur or giving you an advantage when fighting the Minotaur, because potion of invisibility is a buff to you. At the end of the day, if monsters cannot see invisible, they have less accuracy against you. You can also sometimes stab them, which can be nice. It's a bit of extra damage. So this is a good potion for some situations like that. Obviously, if you're a stabber, you can get a lot more usage out of potion of invisibility. But yeah, I guess that's pretty, self-explanatory. Next on our list, we have Potion of 3. Just before I start talking about Potion of 3, let me add a little bit on invisibility. I don't really have a lot to say about it because it's not really a consumable that I often use or consider with almost all of my characters, since in order to be able to use it properly, you need to have a fair amount of stealth. Or to use it to its greatest extent, you need to have a fair amount of stealth, which is something that I very, very rarely get. But on stealthy characters, it's one of the strongest consumables that you could ask for. Invisibility is a really strong effect if you can weaponize it, and stealthy characters definitely can. Anyway, Potion of 3. A potion which transforms the imbiber into an animated tree which branches, capable of holding weapons. Such a tree has minimal evasion but increased health and natural armor, and is resistant to poison and immune to torment. However, it is rooted in place while the transformation lasts and cannot teleport. If you quaff this potion, with your armor class would be 20. It is an uncommon potion. Funny fact about Potion of 3. I recently played a character of Uskoyo, and I wanted to know if Uskoyo's line pass was usable with Potion of 3, and I found out that it is not usable, so you cannot rely on that to save yourself in a moment of weakness. I didn't get to the point where I could try Grand Finale on Potion of 3, but I anticipate that it would also not work. Anyway, this is a very good consumable, very good for so many characters. The addition to your HP and sometimes to your armor class can definitely be a game changer in some very scary fights earlier in the game, and definitely later in the game for some characters. Let's say that you're playing a squishy spellcaster and you go and you're in Sot, and then you find a curse dog which immediately torments you. It might not be a terrible idea to try to disengage first and foremost, but if you feel like you're unable to and you have to hold your ground, maybe the correct first move to do is to use a potion of 3 so that you're not further tormented. Um, and sure, it does nuke your evasion, but later in the game, like the amount of armor class that you get scales with experience. It's not something that I think I saw here, but it scales with your experience level. By the time you're experience level 27, you actually get close to 40 armor class, if not just a straight of 40. I'm going off of memory on this, and I like to use armor class enhancing items in my inventory, such as armor class rings, so I might be exaggerating it a bit, but it is probably very close to 40, if not just a straight up 40. Anyway, you get sizable amounts of armor class, and immunity to torment, and 50% extra HP at the gargantuan cost of pretty much nuking your evasion. It says minimal evasion. It sets it to 2. It is a pretty bad thing to have 2 evasion later on, but early on it's not really that much of an issue to have very little evasion, since things are already most likely hitting you every time. But with the very large amount of armor class that you get from using it early on, they're probably not hitting you very hard. Or dealing any damage at all. It is a really, really powerful consumable, and I would recommend you to use it in, you know, in moderation, I guess is a good way to put it. Like, use it with a bit of care and foresight, because there's definitely gonna be some situations where the inability to teleport is gonna be extremely scary and very counterproductive and potentially deadly. If you find yourself in such a situation, do keep in mind that you can get rid of the tree effect by either sapping yourself with a Wand of Quicksilver, which is a new 0.29 item that sometimes replaces Wand of Acid, and that just shoots a Quicksilver bolt, or by using a Potion of Cancellation. Yeah, Potion of Cancellation can also get rid of this. But it might take you a bit too long to teleport to safety if you choose to do either of those things. So, as I always say, foresight is the best way to avoid any nasty situations where you have to use consumables. That's Potion of 3, alright. Next on our list, we have Potion of Mana. Valuable potion which grants an infusion of mana. It is a rare potion, and it does exactly what it says on the label. In any situations where you would like to use a potion of mana, you really want to just have used a potion of brilliance beforehand, since potion of brilliance is less rare than potion of mana. Using a potion of brilliance before using a potion of mana is like doubling up the efficiency of the potion of mana. So yeah, Potion of Mana is what you use when you're already affected by Brilliance, but you ran out of mana anyway. That's how you use Potion of Mana to its fullest extent. Of course, being an early game spellcaster, all spellcasters starts now get a Potion of Mana as of 0.29. There's gonna be definitely some ridiculous D1 situations where you press O and you stumble into 4 jackals, where you're obviously gonna need a bit of extra mana to get rid of them, and you don't have Potion of Brilliance. So that's why you get a Potion of Mana nowadays as a mage. And yeah, if you get into such a position, it's not the end of the world if you do have to use your potion of mana. But the more the game progresses, the least you want to just use a potion of mana, especially after the point where you have already identified the potion of brilliance, because of how rare of a consumable it is. So yeah, that's Potion of Mana. Not much to say about an item that regens mana. It is obviously not going to be the most usable or the most useful to a character that is barely touching its mana bar. It is definitely quite an interesting item for things like Bind Stalkers that have permanent Guardian Spirit. Definitely Guardian Spirit characters as well that are not really using their mana for anything else. Obviously spellcasters and globes of infusion characters that that tend to run out of mana, because globes of infusion increase the damage that you deal on melee by using a bit of your mana as combustible, as a resource, as fuel. This is extremely funny with the Math Molars globes. Math Mage Molars, I think that's how the item's called. Because that item takes up all of your mana and converts it into damage for the first attack in a fight. If you have potions of mana, you can definitely do that again a second time in a fight. And it might be in your best interest to do that. Obviously, not against everything, not even against most things, since it's such a rare consumable, this potion of mana, but maybe against like a dangerous unique or an orb of fire or a lich, you might want to do it and go for the double dump of mana on the monster thanks to the Math Mage Maulers. But anyway, that's Potion of Mana. Next on the list we have Potion of Might, a potion which greatly increases the power of the drinker's melee attacks. It is an uncommon potion. Very self-explanatory as well. You grow mighty and deal more damage. If you want to know what this means, it's 1 dice of 10 extra damage on every attack. Due to the nature of it being a fixed damage increase, 1 dice of 10 instead of like an additive increase instead of a multiplicative increase. It is much better when you're doing many attacks per turn. Say short blades, definitely quick blades, finesse from Okawaru, haste. And it is really not that great for the opposites. You know, Dark Mole, Giant Spike Glove, Great Mace, Heavy Two-Handers. In general, 0.7 attack speed weapons. That is not to say that it is useless when you're using those, but it's just not as great as it would be for a Short Blades user or for a character that somehow finds itself in a position where it can attack faster than 0.7. You should still use it regardless of your weapon if you anticipate that you're going to get into a nasty fight. Once again, as I have already mentioned a couple of times in this video, Bolts 5, Sod 5, most room branch endings, the Royal Jelly, for example, Extended, Panlords, Hell etc. You know, maybe if you are early in the game, since this is fighters starting game consumable, you might want to use it against like a Nork warrior or some whites or something, or maybe even some gnolls or a Nork priest to make sure that you don't die. But fortunately, you're not gonna have to use that multiple times in the early game, so you can like save them for when you actually truly need to use them and can get the most value out of using these consumables. That is true for consumables as a whole. You use them only when you have to use them, and the reason why I'm making this video is to, you know, try to make it as clear as possible when I personally think is the time to use any specific potion. So yeah, anyway, next on our list, we're getting close to the end. Potion of Mutation. Sorry, item? Potion of Mutation. Potion which mutates the drinker, removing several mutations and granting a few random mutations, which are likely but not guaranteed to be good. It is an uncommon potion. Potion of Mutation is one of the most dangerous things that you can do to yourself in this game. In general, it is a good idea to stay as far away from the mutation minigame in Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup as possible, since there's literally game-ending mutations that, if left untouched, will almost inevitably end in you dying unless you are perfect at playing the game. And the mutations that I'm talking about are most specifically Teleportitis, Berserkitis, and Minus Scroll. All three of those are extremely bad. All the other ones, including the newly added Minus Potion, are not nearly as bad as those three. They are manageable and will almost certainly be annoying, but not game-ending. but just being chilling after a fight, being at half HP, and then being randomly dumped into a band of draconians will almost certainly end poorly for you. Not necessarily kill you, but it will almost it is almost guaranteed to force consumables out of you. Um, that's one thing. For teleportitis. For berserkitis, you may be a character that very rarely resorts to meleeing, but wants to melee like weaker monsters, and then you're meleeing a weak monster, and then you go berserk, and then just around the corner there's like a draconian band in SOT. I'm talking about SOT because mutations are a very late game, end game thing. There's not really that many monsters that can inflict mutations on you, whether directly or indirectly, until the late game. There's, I guess, monsters with Summon Demon can summon Nekos X, but they very often are not that much of an issue. I don't really walk out of Orkmal mutated in almost any of my games, so that's why I'm not really thinking about that much. Let's say for Berserkitis, I already mentioned the Draconian Band in SOT. For teleportitis, I already mentioned the Draconian Band in SOT once again. And for minus a scroll is, in my opinion, the worst mutation in the game. It is a mutation that would need to be removed first and foremost for me to want to start drinking potions of mutation on characters, like on any random character. I do sometimes drink them, but I only do it on characters that I consider to be very weak and really on desperate need for help. Like potion of mutation can give you robust and stuff, or some other minor good things. So yeah, you can definitely use it in a moment of desperation to hope for a better character. But going back to minus a scroll will make it so that you cannot read scrolls. It is very self-explanatory. It doesn't make you have that property forever. It just sometimes removes the possibility of drinking or of reading scrolls whenever you take damage. Taking damage later on is almost unavoidable. Yeah, there's so many monsters with Torment and Damnation and Smite and other effects that hit you with an explosion, fireballs and stuff. Sometimes you just are at full HP and then you just get hit by a crystal spear and now you're at 25% HP. And if you have minus a scroll, you're also unable to read a scroll blinking to not die. So you're at 25% HP because you got hit with a crystal spear, because you got unlucky. And then you're also unable to use the most reliable way to save yourself in such a situation. Minus a scroll should, in my opinion, not be in the game. And it is an opinion that is also shared by a lot of pretty good players. So yeah, I don't think anyone likes minus potion or minus a scroll. Minus potion is like whatever compared to the level of sheer punishment that minus a scroll inflicts upon you and your character. And the sole reason why I don't like using potions of mutation until I am forced to is because of those 3 mutations that I've been talking about. Because you're gonna get them if you have one potion of mutation and you drink it, you're gonna end with something that you're not going to be able to get rid of until you find more of these. And that is pretty scary considering what we've already been talking about. So use this responsibly. Personally, as I mentioned, I like to stay away from the mutation minigame as much as possible, and so I only drink these on characters that are already afflicted by the mutations that I've already mentioned, or other mutations that may not be favorable to have on my current character, because I consider the downsides to be significantly more severe than beneficial the upsides are. But that's my take on potion of mutation. Last in my list of potions is the potion of resistance, which is a potion which grants temporary resistance to a variety of harmful effects. Fire, cold, electricity, poison, and acid. Most noticeably, it doesn't grant resistance to negative energy, so keep it in mind for when you're fighting a shadow dragon. It is a rare potion, and this is a rare late game consumable because early on, not only are you not going to need the resistances, if you're also not going to have access to Potion of Resistance, most likely. The item is very powerful for usage against certain kinds of monsters. For example, Nicola, when you don't have resistance to electricity, though I would definitely recommend you to chase that with a way to prevent Nicola from using Chain Lightning, because if Nicola decides to spam Chain Lightning on you, you're still gonna die. So might as well try to prevent that as much as possible. It is good against monsters that can afflict you with attacks that you're not resistant to. Especially famous monsters that do that are, for example, Shtawa, Marjorie, Maggie, Fanna, like generally uniques. Even Nerika, because it gives poison resistance. So like if you really need any of these resistances, that's when you use Potion of Resistance. And I stress the really part, because you don't want to use Potion of Resistance against like I don't know, Pickle with a Whip of Freezing. Like that would be an absolute waste of a potion of resistance. But you probably want to use it against, I don't know, a goblin with a dagger of poison on like D2 or so. If you somehow already have a potion of resistance identified by that point. Um, because otherwise it might kill you, or a scorpion, or a water moccasin, or another, those nasty early game monsters with poison damage. But in general, if you don't have to use it, you probably shouldn't use it because it's a pretty rare consumable. In general, if you cannot survive those fights without having to use these, maybe you shouldn't be taking those fights in the first place. And if you're already stuck in the fight for one reason or another, like maybe you grossly overestimated your capability of killing something, or you just got unlucky and walked around the corner and it was waiting next to you, then it might be a good idea to use this. But the more the game progresses, the more interesting it becomes, and the more juice you get out of it. Instead of just being able to survive one single monster on D2, you use it to greatly mitigate the amount of damage that you would take from things in like Bolt 5 or Sod. You might even use this for the Royal Jelly fight. The resistances that it provides are definitely quite useful for the Royal Jelly fight, giving acid resistance. If you don't have that, maybe don't go into slime at all, but if you really need to go into slime, you can definitely use a potion of resistance for the Royal Jelly. Fire and cold resistance are also pretty good for the Royal Jelly fight, since you I generally like to use scroll of immolation for the royal jelly, so having fire resistance doesn't hurt there, and cold resistance for the azure jellies. So yeah. And with that out of the way, that's it for all potions. And just like Honorary mentioned, Row of Mines. Why does Row of Mines appear here? Because of this thing. Yeah, it says potion in the label, so it appears if you search for poison for potion. Yeah, preventing them from being healed by potions. It actually is not the thing that I said at the beginning. I think I said at the beginning that it doubled your healing from potions, but that's another artifact. This one prevents you from being healed by potions. So anyway, kind of the opposite of what I was talking about then. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider following the Twitch and subscribing on YouTube. That definitely does help. I am trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube to be able to monetize, because I've heard that magical YouTube money exists, but I am skeptical because I've never seen it, nor do I know of anyone that has seen it. So there's that. And yeah, like if you really enjoyed what I did, I already mentioned it at the start of the video, but once again, I have the Patreon, and it really helps me a lot when you choose to contribute that in that way. You can also just leave a comment and like and that stuff, or subscribe on my YouTube. That definitely helps. Or not subscribe on the Twitch. Sorry, that's what I meant. I don't do editing for these. except on very, very strange occasions where I have to. Um, so yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions for next videos, do leave them in the comments. I would appreciate it if you did that. Just tell me what you want to see and I will try to deliver. This video idea was taken from someone in the comments. Next week I'm probably posting about the scrolls, and then maybe once. But I think before I do once, I am going to do the spell overview for conjurations, the final one that I haven't done yet. I definitely have that planned in the near future. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy this. I hope that you found it useful or entertaining, and I hope you keep enjoying my videos. See you around. And thank you to my supporters on Patreon, Tony Emergence, Blink and Die, Duval Stvol, for your contributions. I appreciate them quite a bit. In addition to that, thank you to the people who have recently subscribed on Twitch. Will Tarquine, Weebile, Prince Cosmos Shaper, Poncho, thank you for your contributions. I appreciate them quite a bit. They definitely help a lot. And thank you to all the people who choose to subscribe but do not notify of the subscription. I also appreciate you all.